Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. Thank you for coming out to the Poetry Society of America. My name is Parker Menzimer. I'm the public programs manager here at the PSA. And tonight, it's really my honor to say that we have partnered with the Library of America to celebrate the wonderful Latino Poetry Anthology published earlier this year. For those of you who are not familiar with the PSA, we're an organization that was founded in 1910. The aim of the organization is to place discourse about poetry squarely in public life. We do that by presenting public programs like tonight's reading, also by putting poems in public places all over the country, including transit systems like here in New York. If you've seen the poems in the subway, that's one of our programs. And it's just a delight to have you here. I'm here with my friend and colleague, Susana Platz-Pineda, the Latino Poetry Fellow at the Library of America. Susana is going to say a few words about this program, about this anthology, and then pass it off to the editor, Rigoberto González.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I'm just going to speak very briefly about Library of America. Founded in 1982, Library of America is a nonprofit publisher and cultural organization dedicated to publishing American writing in authoritative editions, prioritizing authorial intention through careful scholarship and research. And then I just want to speak briefly about this incredible anthology that Rigoberto put together, whom it's my pleasure to introduce in a moment. Spanning 5 centuries and featuring the work of over 180 poets, Latino Poetry, the Library of America Anthology, is a comprehensive collection of Latino poetry, the first of this size and span ever published, a long overdue and necessary effort. It offers a full picture of the multifaceted, multilingual poetic contributions of the Latin American diaspora, the borderlands, and Puerto Rico, starting with poems documenting first encounters between indigenous people and settlers on this continent, to the contributions of revolutionary figures in exile, such as Lola Rodriguez de Tio and José Martí, to paradigmatic texts of mid-20th century movements, aesthetic and political, like the Chicano movement, as well as songs, corridos, and contemporary lyric and experimental poetry. This anthology for me is also really special in that 140 of the poets in it are actually living and writing today. And I also want to say that this is the final event of Places We Call Home, which was a year-long nationwide public humanities initiative surrounding the anthology, funded by the NEH and Emerson Collective. So since September of 2024, the initiative supported over 170 events around the country and also has given way to an online archive featuring poems, essays, resources, and readings and interviews with poets from the anthology, including some of the poets you'll be hearing from today. So that's all at latinopoetry.org. So yeah, we're just really grateful to Rigoberto, to all the poets, and to all the organizations. And personally, it's been an honor to witness the continuous resonance of these poems in real time, and to be reminded of the legacies of struggle that informed them, especially in this time. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Rigoberto. And read his bio. So Rigoberto González lives in Newark, New Jersey, and is the author of 18 books of poetry and prose. His awards include the Lannan, Guggenheim, NEA, NYFA, and USA Rolón Fellowships, the Penn Volcker Award, the American Book Award from the Before Columbus Foundation, the Leonard Marshall Prize from the Academy of American Poets, the Shelley Memorial Prize from the Poetry Society of America. Contributing editor of Poets and Writers, he is the series editor for the Camino del Sol Latinx Literary Series at the University of Arizona Press. Currently, he's Distinguished Professor of English and Director of the MFA Program of Creative Writing at Rutgers Newark, the State University of New Jersey. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Hello, everybody. So we're going to have a brief interview with my wonderful friend, Urayoán Noel, and then I'll be introducing the 4 readers for tonight. But just to give you a little bit of context for the text. So, Ura, you're going to join me out here. We can begin our conversation. I do want to say, though, I'm not in the anthology. And that was deliberate because I knew that everybody that was not in it was gonna be mad at me. So then I can say, well, I'm not in it either. You know, it's like, anyway.
Gracias, Rigoberto. Good evening, everybody. My name is Urayoán Noel. I'm a contributor to the anthology, but also one of the advisors for Latino poetry in the places we call home. I just want to give a shout out to Rigoberto for his decades and decades of advocacy, mentorship, community engagement. I think for many of us, right, you were not only a major writer, right, but a model for social movement inspired and grassroots poetics and literature that also infiltrates institutions, right? And so those bridges that you've built have meant everything to so many of us. So I consider this one of many acts of institutional strategizing and radical imagination in Rigoberto's long and storied career. So along those lines, I thought I would ask you just how did this anthology come about? How did you come to edit it? And then what was your editorial vision? I can't imagine how you even begin, right? Creating a blueprint for a category as vast as Latino poetry.
Right. Well, you know, I've been telling this story so many times that I'm not sure if it's true, but I've said it so many times that now it is true. But after the success and the incredible reception to Library of America's African American poetry anthology, edited by the amazing poet and editor and just man about town, Kevin Young, then came the idea of doing the Latino version. In its own right, has different traditions, different trajectories, different ways that it would take shape. So I think I was interviewed a few times for it, and I guess I must have said something right, because then I got the call that I would be the one. I would be the name of the cover as the editor. I didn't realize that how much work it was going to be. I think my idea was that it was going to be only 20th century, but theirs was no. Just like the African American anthology that spans centuries. And I go, well, one of the challenges with that idea is that unlike African American poets who revere and who celebrate their ancestors, with Latinos it's a little bit different, especially because our ancestors are the colonizers. Our ancestors are those that came and conquered lands, But then I thought about that thinking. I thought, well, we can't deny it either. It's like that is a reality, not for all of us, but for many of us. The colonizers are our ancestors. We know that they were ancestors because they gave us the religion, they gave us the language, and they gave us, for many of us, our names. That's where it comes from. So we can't deny, where our origins are. What we can do, and I think that's that I looked at anthology differently, is trace the movement, trace the evolution, trace the ways in which we went from the early poet monks that would over and over declare, we came, we conquered, we get religion, we made everything better, to poems of protest, poems of grappling with identity. And in terms of what was the common ground was the issue of home. Just like that's one thing that we do share. It's like here we look at, the colonizers were looking to take over territories to make their homes. For many of us who are immigrants, refugees, exiles, always looking for their home. And neither of these groups abandoned the home they left. It was almost as you adopted another home. It was possible to adopt another home, to have more than one homes. And for those who didn't think of home in terms of a space or a physical space or a territory or land, there are other ways to negotiate home. Language is a home. Our identities are homes. Our bodies are homes. We create our own, just like so many of us create our own families and our own networks, our own communities. That's how we also create homes. So that became like the sort of overarching theme, the home, something that I kept seeing. And in terms of deciding what poems, there are so many, and this I warned the Library of America. In the 20th century, once you get past 1980, there's like an explosion of poets, and we've always been there, but we've not always had the luxury of having venues to publish our work. Or for many of our poets, our ancestor poets of the 20th century, so many of the material did not survive. It was because it was material that was not archived, that was not deemed important enough to archive or to preserve, right? And so we lost so much of that, so much of the material, which is why I also looked at song. I also looked at other archives, because and the other thing to know is that the earlier material, there was so much prose written by our monk poets. It's usually the monks, and then not that much poetry. And again, the poetry is very repetitive, always the same thing. So then you saw the explosion, the beautiful explosion of poetry in the 20th century, late 20th century, and then into the present. And then came the other complication. I can't include everybody. And that's when I began to be afraid. I'm like, oh, people are going to hate me. So I had to find a way to curate, and it was tough. And I thought, well, if anything, this is one vision. This is one possibility and one gateway into this incredible legacy, incredible trajectory. And I hope that it's not the last one.
Thank you. Yeah, when they approached me, that was the first question I asked myself when you asked me, right, is what is America? What does it mean to be of America, right, as in Library of America? And what is a library, right? Thinking, what do you do with the oral tradition? What do you do with the poems that bodies make, right, that never find their way into a library? And I thought, I think the anthology does a really difficult work of threading that needle without pretending that history is otherwise, right? And so in that sense, it's a very beautiful, but also very sobering, right? And I think that's a much needed political statement. So I wanted to ask you, maybe in conclusion, just what did you learn in the process of editing this anthology, and maybe how did your vision of what Latino poetry is or can be or should be? Another way of saying, maybe you mentioned there will be other versions. If you did again, would you do some? What would you dream for a future version of it? It could be another way of answering that question.
Well, first, in terms of what I learned, when I was actually putting together the book, and I had all these pages here and there, all these books. Once I heard the poets, and many I'm meeting for the first time, just like tonight. There's a couple of poets here that I had not met before. Once I heard the work, it refreshed my decision and the passion that I felt when I first read the work, because it really does make a difference. And like I've always known that about poetry, but I had to relearn it because I was reading it constantly. I wasn't hearing it; I was reading it, and then once I began to hear it, then it affirmed my love of the work and my love and my respect for these poets, and it also showed me that that's an important component of language. It's like we need to hear it, we need to listen to it, just like we listen to the messaging or we listen to the stories that are being told in the poems. So, and the other thing that I discovered was, in terms of the younger poets, is how many more permissions I feel that we have now. That I don't know why we didn't before. Either we were afraid or we were careful, or it always takes people to break open the doors, to break those walls, and then all of a sudden the rest of us feel comfortable doing that. And I'm talking about complicating identity, complicating our perspectives of the body, complicating language. And so the next version of this, I think, is going to be really explore those themes, so that we look at Latino. I hope that I widened the scope of what people believe is Latino, but it can even be open even more. And I think that the younger poets are going to show us how to do that. I'm always when I teach class, I always thank the young people. I say, you know what? I'm so happy that some of the conversations that you're having now are easier than they used to be, in terms of trans identity, in terms of looking at connections to other groups. It's like, you're doing so much of what you did, and you may not be aware of it, but that's you. You really opened up our eyes and opened these doors and these avenues of inquiry into language, into identity, into the body. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. So I think that the next generation is going to do that work.
Thank you. I don't know. It told me 10 minutes, so I don't know if I should ask you another question. We're good? Okay. Well, let's give a hand for Rigoberto.
Thank you, Rigoberto. I'm going to take these chairs. I'm going to strike these chairs. I'm going to bring the podium up. And I'm going to welcome Rigoberto back up to the podium to introduce tonight's readers.
Right. You can move this space a little, little narrow here.
I think we can do that. How about,
You can move the podium.
yeah, of course. Does that feel good?
That feels better.
Very good.
All right. So let's hear. Now, after I talked up the poets, now let's hear it. So first, Rio Cortez is a poet and the New York Times bestselling author of picture books, The ABCs of Black History, The River is My Ocean, and The ABCs of Women's History. Her debut poetry collection, Golden Axe, was longlisted for the 2022 National Book Award for Poetry and the PEN America Open Book Award. Born and raised in Salt Lake City, she now lives, writes, and works in Harlem. Please welcome Rio.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rigoberto, for this incredible work in Urayoán. Like, I was telling them, we've never met until tonight, but I was looking at just what went into this is so incredible to me. And it's true that Latino identity is so complex. For me, I'm half Puerto Rican and half Black American, and I grew up in Utah, away from both of those diasporas. And so I think I've always grappled with identity in this way, but I loved that so many of the poets in this anthology are living and that come from all kinds of these traditions, and so I was not alone. I'm gonna read my poem in the anthology, and then I'm gonna read just a few of other poems that really spoke to me in the anthology as well. So I'm actually gonna start with a poem by Ada Limon called Notes on the Below for Mammoth Cave National Park, because I love a national park. Tell me, humongous cavern, tell me wet limestone, sandstone, cap rock, batwing, sightless, translucent cave shrimp, this endless plummet into more of the unknown. Tell me how one keeps secrets for so long. All my life, I've lived above the ground, car wheels over paved roads, roots breaking through concrete, and still I've not understood the real of this life's purpose. Not so much living, but a hovering without sense. What's it like to be always night? No moon, but a few lit up circles at your many openings. Endless dark, still time must enter you. Like a train, like a green river. Tell me what it is to be the thing rooted in shadow, to be the thing not touched by light. No. That's not it. To not even need the light. I envy that. Desire is a tricky thing, the boiling of the body's wants, more praise, more hands holding the knives away. I've been the one who has craved and craved until I could not see beyond my own greed. There's a whole nation of us. To forgive myself, I point to the earth as a witness. To you, your frozen Niagara, your fat man's misery, you with your 400 miles of interlocking caves that lead only to more of you. Tell me, what is it to be quiet and yet still breathing? Ruler of the underlying, let me speak to both the dead and the living as you do. Speak to the ruined earth, the stalactites, the eastern small-footed bat, to honor this, the length of days, to speak to the core that creates and swallows, to speak not always to what's shouting, but to what's underneath asking for nothing. I am the mouth of the cave. I am willing to crawl. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm going to read this one. I'm just a fan, that's all. I'm going to read this one by Cynthia Cruz, called Self-Portrait. I did not want my body spackled in the world's black beads and broke diamonds. What the world wanted, I did not. Of the things it wanted, the body of Sunday morning, the warm wine and the blood, the dripping fox furs dragged through the black New York snow, the parked car, the pearls to the first pew, the funders, the trustees, the bloat, the red weight of the world, their faces. I wanted not that. I wanted St. Francis, the love of his animals, the wolf, broken and bleeding. That was me. Yeah, thanks. All right. Okay, I have this one. So, I want to read this. This is a Willie Perdomo poem. I just feel like I could not quite ever do it the way that Willie Perdomo could. But I'm going to challenge myself today. And then I'll end with mine in the collection. This is called, we used to call it Puerto Rican rain. The rain had just finished saying, "This block is mine." The kind of rain where you could sleep through 2 breakthroughs and still have enough left to belly sing the ambrosial hour. Blood pellets in the dusk and dashes of hail were perfect for finding new stashes. That is to say, visitations were never announced. A broken umbrella handle posed a question by the daycare center. A good time to crush a love on a stoop, to narrate through a window, to find the heartbeat of solitude and collect gallons for the bruja's next baño. Good conditions to be in the dialectic of oh wow, ooh baby, oh shit, ooh damn. The perfect weather to master the art of standing under a bodega awning, shifting crisis to profit. There's always a dreamer who thinks they can race the rain to the building, who loves the smell of wet concrete and uses a good downpour to be discreet. There's always one toddler who quietly crawls off the top step, dodges a thunderbolt, and quickly becomes fluent in all things stormy weather. Story goes that Don Julio was swept up, ripped around the corner, stumbled and cartwheeled to the light post, but he never let go of his pork pie hat. An improvised ballet near an improvised rivulet. Shopping bags, pulverized by branches, contort into a new nation of black flags. Our block was an island. The manhole on the corner perked with popsicle sticks, empty beer cans, and the brown sole of a fake karate slipper as we started to sink and boil. The forecast, you said, was type perfect. All right, so I'm going to end with this. This is me, Rio Cortez. This is Ars Poetica with Mother and Dogs. I turn and don't expect my mother's face. I ask, how did you enter this poem? She says it wasn't easy. She is dressed in my favorite horse print silk sheath and dripping lake water, says she wore it to trick my lover. I want to ask, how could you? But instead, I reach behind her and break a vase she used to love. But we are surrounded by dogs. Some of them used to sleep at our bedsides, but don't anymore. She grabs my hand, and who am I anyway to keep asking her to leave? Why not take her face and explain the damned line? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rio. Our next reader is Vanessa Jimenez Gabb, is the author of Basic Needs and Images for Radical Politics, which was the editor's pick in the 2015 Black Box Poetry Prize. Recent work has been featured in the Academy American Poets Poem Day series, Dia, Chelsea's Poetry series, Tracy K. Smith's The Slowdown Podcast, The Poetry Project, Pen American, and the Brooklyn Rail. She is a graduate of Tufts University and holds an MFA in poetry from CUNY Brooklyn College and an MA from St. John's University. Of Colombian and Belizean descent, she is from and lives in Brooklyn, New York, with her toddler and partner, the Ukrainian painter and muralist, Misha Tutunik. Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. So nice to see new friends, old friends. Rigoberto, thank you for your labor and generosity in making this artifact, to everyone involved in the process. Such a radical act to be included in this exclusionary moment. So I guess the plan is I'm gonna read a poem like Rio did by someone else, and then I'm gonna read my poem from this, and then I was gonna read some new work, try it out. So this is William Carlos Williams, The Poet and His Poems. 1, the poem is this: a nuance of sound delicately operating upon a cataract of sense. Vague, what a stupid image. Who operates and who is operated on? How can a nuance operate on anything? It is all in the sound. A song, seldom a song. It should be a song, made of particulars, wasps, a gentian, something immediate, open scissors, a lady's eyes, the particulars of a song waking upon a bed of sound. 2, stiff-jointed poets, or the wobble-headed who chase vague images and think, because they feel lovely movements upon the instruments of their hearts, that they are gifted. Forget the exchange. How much is paid and how little, when you count it in your hand, you get for it later in the market. It's a constant mystery, no less in the writing of imaginative lines than in love. Okay, and this is mine from my first book, which is now almost like 10 years old, so it's so nice to go back. I was trying to go forward, but it's nice to go back. This is called Sunan Tutnich. You are in my mouth sweet when I hear Belize. Oh, my sweet Belize, on TV, they are eating panadas. We ate panadas just this week. I fried them barefoot like a mother, even though I am no mother. I was one once for 8 weeks. Then we were in Belize. Remember the ruins? Sunan Tutnich, the stone woman. We took a boat to land to a bus that delivered us rum drunk. Post-colonial, I didn't recall what fell from my uterus. We saw the sun and fried for days and tasted better. Photos of us exist somewhere. We were so there. The mosquitoes took our blood. So I'm going to read, I'm going to excerpt from a section in a new manuscript, which traces my journey into motherhood, and which is very much grounded in the socioeconomic history of Belize. and engages with my father's doctoral dissertation from 30 years ago on the financial state of Belize post-liberation in 1981. It was the last British colony to gain its independence. And it's the only English-speaking former colony in Central America. So thank you, Rigoberto, for including it. Okay, so this is from Mahogany. And its crown, tree, large shining leaf, little leaf, rustling between rivers. The land, Belize, Balix, from the Maya, muddy water, hiding place. Spanish, English, Scottish, pirates and privateers shifting land, content itself giving birth, the form already latent, the manifestation of matter and idea, treaties, trees, children, leaf, appearances, like change, the land, the people, clearing the land, the extraction, colony, crown colony, the romantic period where, consumption extravagant, the sum of the excess. The open taken, no blue hope, a body, the longing opens, further develops, unfulfilled, explores in detail the descriptive concern, otherwise expected, most in the form of falling. These characteristics result in a limitation of domestic investment projects. Question, is there any evidence of restoring balance? A narrowing, sharp departures encourage opening. The true scarcity and uncertainty read, some is the expense of others. Modern fragmentation, the fragmentation distorts. Will. However, the trends which can be seen indicate a rate of growth that is much faster than other variables which are important for stability. A subtle beauty, a louder must, that's it, to enter, the man is here, virtually in complete control of the domestic system. You, like most, many in one. I hadn't understood numbers or logic, math nor science, and nothing in me could ever hold back tears onto discipline. You closed the book, handing it back. Come back when you're done, you said. The last thing for days. Ice in the palms, a leaf like you before you, a lover of silencing, and she closing behind us. Hush, hush, here's too much noise. The mixture of the two yields the ambiguous sign of the partial. What splits? All have into archive. No one keeps a house, a yard. There are trees, some say loathe, others love. The invisible, the family, meaning thieves can be anyone. Air, land, within a house, a plot. The parlor door closes. To live, the water rushes in. The hurricane washed them ashore. Sisters breathe and rise in others' mansions, making clean to begin again. They'd come from a dirt road, a plot with shacks, and worked, saved, and having saved, descended a staircase, a house with floors, years, now become many and nothing. What feeling made them betray self, one another? What feeling now to sell, but behind in silence they did, their own backs, their own land, their own plots? The notion of the women, they were darker, everything already and changed when they arrived on this shore, or unchanged like money and always before, only never said like words. You brought home a computer and I began typing. The conflict among the goddesses, floods and the fall of the heavens though the conflict is vertical, though the universe expands, and lower, conflict. Survivors in canoes escape, demand glory, theirs, dagger, crucifix, antagonist, so tightly in hand. Becoming, I see, becomes urgent. During the reform period, the evolution, not to follow chronological order, most coveted is always dialectical, my mind incapacitated for battle. I am not following chronological order, the forces of production. I had forgotten the knowledge of our people living on some lost continent, the idea of here, speaking incomprehensible, to be almost in the world, to beget movement, little white light, The beach beneath the soca, silhouette of a great barrier somewhere, I barely a shape, just black crashing after black. Gone with the wind, the waning light, my eyesight, the only story. Imagination always story, easily at the center, good and all the boys there without more, in the longing, waves and to feel an ache, a sunset. Speaking of love, he eats from the tree and saves half for her. With his hands he halves it and opens it to the elements. She watches him hand her halves. He says, listen, she says, just let me be here, just no. Eat, he says. They cut in pieces. See how velvet, how ripe it is? She knows he is trying for metaphor. She knows he is saying, let us stop all this. Love me, I am here. Love me, our beauty lies in our perishability. It is this short life, the death of it, that is supposed to move. See its impermanence? If never to vanish, if never to fade away, what would the tree be? But she misunderstands him. When he gives, she's not listening to him. He doesn't matter, really. He does not believe in designations. I'm a simple man, he says. See this? My mouth, my hands, a tree. When you are hungry, I feed you. How to go back? I just want that feeling right there inside. Again, I am still a romantic. I am still not understanding the basic emotional principles. These conditions became evident as a result of independence. No relations but in things, you and the other economists repeat. Ghosts, children in the theses. My daughter will emerge. Independence is counted. Her power now also commodity. Crown takes crown. The land, the people, a chair comes into being, devoid of social history. We see only a chair. My lord, they pleaded. I have tried to follow as closely as possible the theoretical foundation. Greater vulnerability in terms of the relationships will prevail. My love, I whisper. Thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. You know, so every once in a while, somebody will be surprised that, William Carlos Williams is in the Latino Anthology. And I would say, where do you think the Carlos comes from? Our third reader, Urayoán Noel, is a writer, translator, and performer from Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. Noel is the author of 10 books in English and Spanish, including The Critical Study in Visible Movement, New Rican Poetry from the 60s to Slam, and the poetry collection Borinquen, High Density Politics, and Transversal. A Little Boricua's Fellow in Poetry and the recipient of fellowships from the Howard Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Schomburg Center, Noel has been a finalist for the National Translation Award, the Best Translated Book Award, and the National Poetry Series Paz Prize for Poetry, and the Pan American Literary Awards and the Modern Language Association Book Prizes. Please welcome Ura.
Thank you, Rigoberto. I should add that I briefly considered my vast array of guayaberas, but then I thought, no, it's Rigo. I can't compete. I know my place, so I kept it simple. Okay, I'm going to start with a poem from what I believe is the oldest living poet in the anthology, as far as I know, Rina P. Espaillat, born in 1932 in the Dominican Republic, raised between the DR and Queens, Hunter College representando, and based for a long time now in Massachusetts. And it's a sonnet, but I love that it's a Caribbean sonnet, where in a way it's about the music, and in a way it's a meditation on that music, on the impossibility of translation. Of course, impossible, transmuting touch and color into sound, sound into sign, sign into sense again and back. Too much struggling after the names for flavor, line, knowing they can't be found, no, not in one language, in two, across the grain of speech, unthinkable. Easier to fold the sun into its syllable. Yet lovers, each mute in one skin, can learn to speak in tongues. speak themselves whole, if only once you've heard. Fitful above the fields, the summer sung in high cascading turns of fluent bird, and seen in shallow pools in every town how rain translates the sky and writes it down. Rina P. Espaillat. Okay, so Espaillat was actually one of the poets that inspired the Peace of Mind that's in the anthology. After Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, I had the need to find order amid chaos and started writing sonnets, and that felt so hegemonic and so mainstream. I thought, okay, I need to connect, right, with the song, right? Sonnet, little song, and really Espaillat's sense of music, but also her incredible virtuosity as a self-translator, right? Gave me the sense that translation was a way of defamiliarizing, perhaps, and honoring the secret music that is at the heart of poetry. So, and then the sonnets switch into a decima at the end, just trying to bring it back to that oral tradition. No longer owed, for my grandmother in Puerto Rico. A hurricane destroyed your sense of home, and all you wanted was to pack your bags in dead of night, still waving mental flags, forgetting the nation is a syndrome. All that's left of the sea in you is foam, the coastline's broken voice and all its crags. You hear the governor admit some snags were hit, nada, mere blips in the biome, nothing that private equity can't fix once speculators pour into San Juan to harvest the bad seeds of an idea. She tells you Santa Clara in 56 had nothing on the brutal San Ciprian, and yes, your abuela's named Maria. Thoughts of Katrina and the Superdome, El Caribe mapped with blood and sandbags, displaced diasporic Spanglish hashtags, a phantom tab you keep on Google Chrome, days of hunger and dreams of honeycomb. Our souls reborn or worn thin like old rags. The locust tree still stands, although it sags. Austere sharks sequence the island's genome, and parrots squawk survival politics whose only power grid is the damp dawn. There's no other way, no panacea. Throw stuff at empire's walls and see what sticks, or tear down the walls you were standing on. Why not run that question by Maria? Beyond the indigenous chromosome, your gut genealogies in chains and gags paraded through the colony's main drags and left to die. So when you write your tome, please note, each word must be a catacomb, must be a sepulcher, and must be a cradle in some sort of aporia, where bodies draw on song as guns are drawn, resurgent silent H in Urayoán, your ache song booms ashore, Ashe Maria. And now the Spanish. Oda indebida para mi abuela en Puerto Rico. El huracán arrasa lo que amas. Quieres viajar de noche sin manera, sin maletas, izar, mental, bandera. Del mar llevas la espuma. Panoramas de una patria inacible y sus dolamas. Voz ronca de disturbios mar afuera, inundando ciudades de salmuera. El gobernador vende melodramas para saciar al buitre inversionista. Le ora San Ciprián y Santa Clara, sabiendo que la isla se vacía. Dice tu abuela, y a primera vista, ella que también se llama María, que el viento de la muerte no compara. Oh sol de Nueva Orleans, como derramas sangre colonial en cualquier acera. Hay diques y turistas donde quieras. Fantasmas de un Caribe en hologramas, hemisféretros, ya sin más proclamas, escupamos al Dios de cabecera, hashtag, que el verdugo sea el que muera. Cotorras, revoloteen las ramas para que el bosque de voces resista. Tiburones austeros, pongan cara de que al crucero le llegó el día. Se acabaron los memes de conquista. Vivimos para que otro sol brillara. Revolución que nadie domaría. Pese a los ancestros que reclamas, tu genealogía es prisionera. Cadenas, mordazas, lucha obrera, cenizas de carbón sobre las camas. El ácido vital que desparramas en una extraña especie de aporía. Quema las joyas de tu fantasía, cual H silenciosa de huracán. Tus muertos insurrectos gritarán, quebranto y contracanto. Ashe, María. Okay. And I will close channeling another influence, in this case an ancestor, late great Pedro Pietri. When I was starting out at the New Rican Poets Cafe, was the heyday of slam. So your shit had to be like tight. You see what I got going on, it's not that, right? My poems are too long, too weird, I couldn't memorize them. Always got eliminated in the first round. I told Pedro. Pedro was like, fuck that, we're Puerto Ricans. We've been improvising our own poetry for centuries. Don't let them tell you how it's done. You do you. So if poets like Espaillat gave me the sense of formal adventure, obviously poets like Pietri gave me the political imagination, the humor, the irreverence, the sense of possibility. The broken English dream. It was the night before the welfare check, and everybody sat around the table, hungry, heartbroken, cold, confused, and unable to heal the wounds on the dead calendar of our eyes. Old newspapers and empty beer cans, and Jesus is the master of this house. Picture frames made in Japan by the US was hanging out in the kitchen, which was also the living room, the bedroom, and the linen closet. Wall-to-wall bad news was playing over the radio that last week was stolen by dying dope addicts looking for a fix to forget that they were ever born. The slumlord came with hand grenades in his bad breath to collect the rent we were unable to pay 6 months ago and inform us and all the empty shopping bags we own that unless we pay, we will be evicted immediately. And the streets where the night lives and the temperature is below zero, 365 days a year, will become our next home address. All the light bulbs of our apartment were left and forgotten at the pawn shop across the street from the heart attack the broken back buildings were having. Infants not born yet played hide and seek in the cemetery of their imagination. Blind in the mind, tenants were praying for numbers to hit so they can move out and wake up with new birth certificates. The grocery stores were outnumbered by funeral parlors with neon signs that said, "Customers wanted, no experience necessary." A liquor store here and a liquor store everywhere you looked filled the polluted air with on-the-job training prostitutes, pimps, and winos and thieves and abortions, white business store owners from clean-cut, plush, push-button, neat neighborhoods who learned how to speak Spanish in 6 weeks, wrote love letters to their cash registers. "Vote for me," said the undertaker. "I am the man with the solution to your problems." To the United States we came to learn how to misspell our name, to lose the definition of pride, to have misfortune on our side, to live where rats and roaches roam in a house that is definitely not a home, to be trained to turn on television sets, to dream about jobs you will never get, to fill out welfare applications, to graduate from school without an education, to be drafted, distorted, and destroyed, to work full-time and still be unemployed, to wait for income tax returns and stay drunk and lose concern for the heart and soul of our race and the climate that produce our fate, to pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of installment plans, one nation under discrimination for which it stands and which it fails, with poverty, injustice, and televised firing squads for everyone who has the sun on the side of their complexion. Lápiz, pencil, pluma, pen, cocina, kitchen, gallina, hen. Everyone who learns this will receive a high school equivalency diploma, a lifetime supply of employment agencies, a different bill collector for every day of the week, the right to vote for the executioner of your choice, and 2 hamburgers for 35 cents in Times Square. We got off the 2-engine airplane at Idlewild Airport, renamed Kennedy Airport 20 years later, with all our furniture and personal belongings in our back pockets. We follow the sign that says, "Welcome to America," but keep your hands off the property. Violators will be electrocuted. Follow the garbage truck to the welfare department if you cannot speak English. So this is America, land of the free for everybody but our family. So this is America, where you wake up in the morning to brush your teeth with the Home Relief, the leading toothpaste, Operation Bootstrap, promise you will get every time you buy a box of cornflakes on the layaway plan. So this is America, land of the free, to watch the adventures of Superman on TV if you know somebody who owns a set that works properly. So this is America, exploited by Columbus in 1492 with Captain Video and Lady Bird Johnson, the first Miss Subways in the New Testament. So this is America, where they keep you busy singing. En mi casa toman bustelo, en mi casa toman bustelo. Pedro Pietri. Gracias, Rigoberto. Gracias, Library of America. Gracias, Poetry Society of America.
That's wonderful. Our final reader for tonight, José Olivarez, the son of Mexican immigrants and the author of 2 collections of poems, including most recently Promises of Gold, which was longlisted for the 2023 National Book Award. His debut book of poems, Citizen Illegal, was a finalist for the Penn Jean-Stein Book Award and a winner of the 2018 Chicago Review of Books Poetry Prize. Along with Felicia Rose Chavez and Willie Perdomo, he co-edited the poetry anthology, The Breakbeats Poets Volume 4, Latinx. Alongside Antonio Salazar, he published the hybrid book Por Siempre in 2023. He lives in Jersey City, New Jersey. Jose.
Grab this too. Hello, everybody. My name is José Guadalupe Olivares. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Rigoberto, Ura, Rio, and Vanessa, and Susana for all your help. I'm going to start by reading this poem by Lalo Delgado. It's called Stupid America. Stupid America, see that Chicano with the big knife in his steady hand? He doesn't want to knife you. He wants to sit down on a bench and carve Christ figures, but you won't let him. Stupid America, hear that Chicano shouting curses on the street? He is a poet without paper and pencil, and since he cannot write, he will explode. Stupid America, remember that Chicanito flunking math and English? He is the Picasso of your western states, but he will die with 1,000 masterpieces hanging only from his mind. Lalo Delgado. I like that chorus of Stupid America. When I read that poem, I was like, why didn't I think of that? This poem is called Mexican-American Disambiguation. It's after the poet Idris Goodwin. This is my contribution to the anthology. My parents are Mexican, who are not to be confused with Mexican Americans or Chicanos. I am a Chicano from Chicago, which means I am a Mexican American with a fancy college degree and a few tattoos. My parents are Mexican, who are not to be confused with Mexicans still living in Mexico. Those Mexicans call themselves Mexicanos. White folks at parties call them pobrecitos. American colleges call them international students and diverse. My mom was white in Mexico, and my dad was mestizo, and after they crossed the border, they became diverse and minorities and ethnic and exotic. But my parents call themselves Mexicanos, who again should not be confused for Mexicanos living in Mexico. Those Mexicanos might call my family gringos, which is the word my family calls white folks, and white folks call my parents interracial. Colleges say, put them on a brochure. My parents say, ¿qué significa esa palabra? I point out that all the men in my family marry lighter-skinned women. That's a Chicano in me, which means it's a fancy college degrees in me, which is also diverse in me. Everything in me is diverse, even when I eat American foods like hamburgers, which, to clarify, are American when a white person eats them and diverse when my family eats them. So much of America can be understood like this. My parents were undocumented when they came to this country. And by undocumented, I mean sin papeles. And by sin papeles, I mean royally fucked, which should not be confused with the American dream, though the two are cousins. Colleges are not looking for undocumented diversity. My dad became a citizen, which should not be confused with keys to the house. We were safe from deportation, which should not be confused with walking the plank, though they're cousins. I call that sociology, but that's just a Chicano in me who should not be confused with the diversity in me, or the Mexicano in me who is constantly fighting with the upwardly mobile in me, who is good friends with the Mexican American in me, who the colleges love, but only on brochures, who the government calls non-white Hispanic or white Hispanic, who my parents call mijo even when I don't come home so much. Stupid America. I'm gonna read two new poems. I got into professional wrestling recently, and I started writing these poems that are in the voice of, like, if a poet were a wrestler, like what would that voice sound like if he was cutting a promo, if they were cutting a promo. So this is called Promo Introducing. Introducing the least awarded, most rawest, not to mention baldest, poet representing haters and all their allies. From Calumet City, but Chicago claims him. From Mexican parents, but Mexico doesn't claim him. De allá y de aquí, and from everywhere in between. Internationally unknown, locally renowned, undisputed, defending, poet laureate of hookah spots, and everybody that says, I don't get poetry, but that dude writes good poems. And then one last one. This poem is called Love Poem at the End of Birthright Citizenship. So we woke up to find history one step closer to rescinding our citizenship, our lease to this land. So what? You and I never owned much of anything. Even the breath in our lungs is borrowed. Even our beating hearts will be returned to the soil one day. Let the state take whatever they want. Let them burn my writings, confiscate my books, deport me to another country waiting to deport me. On this earth, there's only one thing worth holding. Come here, hold my hand a little longer. Thank you, everybody.